Hi, welcome to Armchair Philosophy. I'm Rubin, and today we're going to be talking about metaphysics in Platonism and Neoplatonism. Platonism follows the writings of Plato, who I've talked about briefly in other episodes. He was an Athenian philosopher and a student of Socrates. Plato lived between 428 BCE and 348 BCE. His approach to metaphysics is sprinkled throughout his writings, and perhaps the most significant part of it is his theory of forms. It had the largest impact on his overall views and eventually became the foundations of Neoplatonism. The theory of forms states that for each quality there is something which is the greatest possible expression of that quality. One of the more obvious times that Plato points out his theory of forms is in the dialogue Phaedo, where he discusses the form of beauty. Quote, "If anyone tells me that what makes a thing beautiful is its lovely color, or its shape, or anything else of the sort, I let all that go. For all those things confuse me, and I hold simply and plainly, and perhaps foolishly to this, that nothing else makes it beautiful but the presence or communion, call it which you please, of absolute beauty, however it might have been gained. About the way in which it happens, I make no positive statement as yet, but I do insist that beautiful things are made beautiful by beauty." So we see that the Platonic approach to metaphysics is one of absolutes. The beautiful painting isn't beautiful because of any of its aspects, it's beautiful because it communes with the form of beauty, the absolute beauty. A certain shape or color combination can't be what makes it beautiful, because that shape or color combination can be present in another painting where it isn't beautiful. For example, if you're doing a seascape painting, you can use a combination of blue and green and make it look really nice. But if you're making another painting where the background is mostly orange, it might not look as good. Because those aspects can be present in other pieces which aren't beautiful, Plato thinks that those aren't what make it beautiful. Another way to understand forms is by looking at colors. If you're wearing a green shirt and you're on a green screen and trying to capture footage, you can get away with it if the two shades of green are sufficiently different. Despite literally being different frequencies of light, which means that they aren't the same color, we refer to both colors as green. This underlying greenness would be had from Plato's point of view because both colors are participating in the form of green, or the absolute green. In the dialogue Cratylus, Plato argues for his theory of forms using geometry. At the time in Greece, there weren't computers which could make perfect circles, and people can't draw perfect circles by hand. But they still knew what they were referencing when they said, "draw a circle." Plato surmises that it's because there is a form of a circle, individual circles just being shapes which participate in that form. Human beings are supposed to know what a circle is because they recollect it. Remember, Plato's epistemology depends on his belief in the immortality of the soul. This presents a problem for those of us who don't necessarily believe in a soul, but there are other problems with the theory by Plato's own admission. In the dialogue Parmenides, a young Socrates argues with Parmenides. The argument put forward in that dialogue is referred to as the third man argument, because it uses the form of man as its theoretical basis. Parmenides states that if a man is a man because he participates in the form of man, then there must be a third actor, or another form, which accounts for the interaction between man and the form of man. However, once that's introduced, there must be something which accounts for the interaction between the three, and so on ad nauseum. Despite the third man and other problems, forms became the foundation of some Aristotelian metaphysics as well as those of Plotinus. the founder of the last major ancient Greek school of philosophy, Neoplatonism. Plotinus was an Egyptian philosopher who lived between 205 and 270 in the Common Era. His writings are commonly referred to as Neoplatonic, though the term Neoplatonism didn't actually show up until about the 19th century. It's significant that Neoplatonism was coined by theologians rather than philosophers, as it is a decidedly more spiritual system than what Plato suggested. It's also important to note that Neoplatonism is referred to as a Greek school of thought due to its origins in Platonism rather than its national origin, as Plotinus was Egyptian. Due to his interest in philosophy, Plotinus went to Alexandria, where he studied for a while. He took an interest in Persian and Indian philosophy specifically, and eventually he went to Rome, where he taught and lived the rest of his days. Plotinus suggested a form which is the fundamental basis for the constitution of reality, called the One, which is analogous to the Hindu concept of Brahman. Obviously, his studies in Indian philosophy had some lasting effects on his views. The One is both self-causing and also causes all other things. But unlike Plato, Plotinus uses his argument in the form of reductionism, calling back to pre-Socratic philosophers and their methods. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy states, that is, ultimate explanations of phenomena and of contingent entities can only rest in what itself requires no explanation. If what is actually sought is the explanation for something that is in one way or another complex, what grounds the explanation will be simple relative to the observed complexity. Thus, what grounds an explanation must be different from the sorts of things explained by it. According to this line of reasoning, explanatia that are themselves complex, perhaps in some way different from the sort of complexity of the explananda, will be in need of other types of explanation. In addition, a plethora of explanatory principles will themselves be in need of explanation. Taken to its logical conclusion, the explanatory path must finally lead to that which is unique and absolutely uncomplex. Two more forms of major import to Plotinus were intellect and soul. He thought those two things were necessary in order to understand why there's any kind of distinction at all from the One. Intellect represents logic, rationality, and generally true information, while soul represents things like the desire for immortality through reproduction. One deals primarily with external processes and the other primarily with internal processes. These three fundamental forms are deeply interconnected, because as things arise in the intellect or the soul, they become possibilities which must be expressed through the One, which is all things. These are just some of the basic concepts in Platonic and Neoplatonic metaphysics. If you want to see more content like this, then leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe if you want to keep up to date. If you really like what we do here, then you can donate to us on Patreon. We have a whole bunch of rewards there. Or you could buy a t-shirt through our website, MilwaukeeAtheist.com. That's all for this time on Armchair Philosophy. Bye-bye now.